Okay, we are on. Good evening. Welcome to the Finance Committee, January 16th, 2019. We will jump right into the agenda. The first item on the agenda is the Annual Finance Committee Report Review and Approval. This is done every year. It's not, since my time here, it's never been read aloud during a meeting, and I think it might be a little bit long. But I think it's important that it be read aloud so the people at home, so it can be on record that what we're all approving. So I'm gonna, or would you like to read it? Or would you like me to read it? It's a little bit.
We can take turns. That's good.
Okay, I'll read the first page. How's that? All right. 2018 Annual Report of the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee's goals is to provide accurate and objective information about financial decisions facing the town to the citizenry of Easton in a straightforward fashion so the citizens can make informed decisions and vote accordingly during annual town meeting and at any special town meeting. The independent recommendations of the committee are included and published on the town warrant along with those of the Board of Selectmen or other boards, as appropriate. From time to time during the year, the committee will consider any or all municipal questions for the purpose of making reports or recommendations to the town. The Finance Committee is responsible to complete a detailed review and make recommendations on all town departments and the school department budgets, reviewing financial impacts of any and all town projects, and making recommendations on all town meeting warrant articles. Budget review also includes the town's many off-budget accounts, looking for opportunities to use the account when appropriate in an effort to most efficiently stretch the citizenry's tax dollars. Finance Committee is made up of 9 elected members, and each year 3 members' 3-year terms expire. The committee has a usual meeting schedule of the second Wednesday of every month during the fiscal year budget and annual town meeting season of March through May, and as needed for special town meetings and other items as they arise. Meetings may be needed more often, and agenda are posted according to rules of the open meeting law. Throughout the year, the committee is presented with many great project ideas. However, these ideas and the costs associated with each must be weighed against the financial constraints of the town's budget, not only for today, but for any potential impact that could be felt years down the road. In a perfect world, all plans would get approval, all departments fully staffed, and the town will still have money to set aside for future needs. In reality, difficult decisions must be made that balance the town's basic needs, i.e. public safety and education, with new and exciting programs that continue to drive Easton into the future. The committee sees itself as unbiased overseers of taxpayers' money and make recommendations on how and where that money should and could be spent. For many years, the committee had been introduced to the proposed budget midway through the cycle, well after the town administrator had developed his first preliminary budget. However, in 2017, the committee, in collaboration with the assistance of the town administrator, determined that the communication early on regarding the budget process would be beneficial and constructive. Accordingly, each committee member assumed a subset of assigned departments for which that member serves as a liaison between that department and the committee.
In doing so, the timely exchange of information allows for enhanced understanding of the financial and operational needs of the town, and the members can be better informed advocates for the town. The committee, with cooperation and assistance of the town administrator, the superintendent of schools, and all department heads, now conducts ongoing reviews of the current fiscal year budget while being involved sooner in next year's budget development. With a fiscally sound set of financial management guidelines found at Policy 52A, adopted previously by the Board of Selectmen in August of 2016, guiding the committee's oversight of the budgeting process, combined with the application of 3 tenets approved by this committee in 2017, budget items and projects are assessed and recommendations proffered using objective measures. The 3 tenets include an assessment as to whether the recommendation will replenish and fortify reserves, whether the recommendation will enable additional revenues for the town, and whether the recommended action or expenditure is required to maintain or improve upon vital services the town has come to need and expect. The Finance Committee makes its recommendations known at town meeting. To demonstrate how we reach those recommendations, all the committee's meetings are televised on ECAT. The goal of airing and recording the meetings is to reflect the transparency of inquiry, deliberation, and decision-making. We encourage open debate during our meetings and ensure that all sides of a given issue are presented before a final vote is taken. Input from the community is always welcome, and we encourage citizens to attend our meetings if they have a concern or question about a financial issue or of importance to the town. Members of the committee hold seats on a variety of other committees in the town throughout the year, including, but not limited to, budget, capital planning, and audit. Since 2017, 2 members of this committee volunteered and were appointed to serve on the school planning committee to represent financial interests of the citizenry during the center school repair and replacement project. The committee also attempts to have a member in attendance or view the recorded broadcast of every Board of Selectmen's meeting, so when matters need discussion at finance committee meetings, the committee will be best prepared. In November, the town sponsored committee representation at the annual meeting of the Association of Town Finance Committees, and we're pleased to have representation and inclusion with that network where towns across the Commonwealth come together for training and education. As elected officials, the committee is dedicated to serving the citizens of Easton. Part of that dedication is an urging of the town's boards, committees, and departments to be increasingly more communicative with the committee on all that may come before it. Ideally, the committee can best serve the town if information about a potential warrant article is known in advance of its issuance. Oftentimes, these articles have complexities that require more inquiry than the short window of time between issuance of the warrant and town meeting floor allows. The committee applauds those groups and individuals that have worked with the committee in the past and encourage this open communication to continue.
The committee would like to thank the Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator, the Town Accountant, School Committee, the Superintendent of Schools for their cooperation and continued working relationships. The committee would like to acknowledge all the town's department heads who make time for the committee members during the budget season to review individual budgets and for working with the committee throughout the year whenever questions arise. The sense of collaboration and cooperation throughout the town is applauded. The committee would like to welcome its newest members, Davis Healy, Jennifer Stacy, Tim Formosi, who were elected to the committee in the town's spring election. After serving one year of a 3-year term on the committee, Tom Broussard was elected to the Board of Selectmen during a special election in early 2018, and subsequently re-elected in a regular election, thereby vacating a seat on the Finance Committee. Tim Formosi was vetted and appointed early in 2018, ultimately winning his seat, a 2-year term in the regular election. We also thank Janice Wolf for her service and dedication to the committee and to the town. Ms. Wolf resigned in the last year of her 3-year term after having served the town for many years in the Finance Committee and serving as a volunteer on several committees. To fill that vacancy, Jamie Stebbins was vetted and appointed to membership. His term expires in 2019. Committee members whose terms are also set to expire in 2019 include Mark Lamb, Stephanie Keller, and lastly, the committee thanks Stacy Lincoln for her continued diligent dedication as the committee secretary. Well, that was a recap of 2018. I respectfully submitted the Finance Committee. What we need, if there's any comments or questions or anything anybody would like to add, now's the time. Go ahead.
We forgot Mike on the new members. It's probably just because I was late.
It's the beard, you're in the stealth mode.
It's just right.
How did I miss you?
This might be getting like really technical. I think that Jen
On the 2-year term,
technically
Tim's the
won
3-year.
Tom's old seat.
Oh, yeah, that's
And
right.
Tim won a 3-year seat.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, Tim
Okay.
was appointed to Tom's seat, and then I won that seat, and Tim ran for the 3-year.
Yours is 3-year.
Correct.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I don't know that people are hooked up on the
Yeah, you
microphone.
guys,
So that people in the town
Mic's
at
on.
home are not going to be able to read.
Okay. Thanks, Craig.
One extra one, yes, Michael.
Okay,
Leave
we'll
these
make
causing
those
trouble.
changes and then submit them if everybody's in agreement with those changes. Does anybody have anything else to add or comment on it?
Well written.
Yeah, good job.
Roberta did most of the work, I think all of it. That being said, would anyone like to make a motion to approve this with the amendments?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, excellent. Budget and department review updates. So, I don't think we got financials from Wendy.
Correct.
Recently?
I did not see them.
I didn't see them either, but she's up to date as through I believe December. So it's completely reasonable that we don't have them right now. But I believe in your last meeting, I was not here. it was discussed reaching out to your departments and introducing yourself and get a better understanding of how things happen, what they're up against. And for those who did do that, I'd like to have them talk about what they learned or anything they'd like to add. And we can start at one end.
Sure. So I have been in contact with the library. Library is one of mine.
Okay.
The way that Uma described it, I thought was very apt in that it's essentially, it's a department that has a scholarship, essentially, in its endowment. So it's budgetary wise, it's pretty straightforward. Its process is there. Its functionality is there. That there's nothing sort of outstanding that's coming down the pipe that's going to knock them off their existing setup. And because they're, for the most part, truly working off that existing endowment and that funding, the amount of money that the town is providing to them is usually, hugely beneficial, but not a dramatic sort of drain on the rest of the budgetary standpoint. The one thing she did say, as far as concerns, was the fact that there's obviously a lot of need for active and engaging staff, so keeping people and bringing people in and sort of hiring for that role. She's doing what she can to make sure that it's compelling compared to all of the other competition of other libraries across the state. Other than that, everything seems to be working really well. Nothing untoward's coming down the pipeline.
I hope everybody watched the Chronicle special.
Yes.
The library was featured.
Does everyone know about that?
No, I didn't see that one.
So they were, I think I have it up. I can't pronounce the Swedish, I think.
Huja?
Huga.
Huga.
It's a
So
hard G,
Chronicle-
I recall that.
Chronicle had a
I've learned it
event
as well.
where they were talking about Huga, which is essentially a Danish word for something that feels cozy, right? So if you're wrapped up in a wool blanket with a cup of tea and a dog, for some people that's a very cozy moment. Apparently the Ames Library instills that in people. So they went on site, they did a film, they filmed at the library, they interviewed, etc. It is available on the Ames Free Library page if you want to see it. You can get there and they have the links available.
It was really cool. I didn't
Yeah.
know that they were pushing themselves as a place to a Huga, as they call it. I never thought of it as something like that. I always thought of it as a place to go grab a book and leave. But apparently there are a lot of people who like to hang out there and
Oh yeah.
read books and just rest and relax and take the ambiance in. It's pretty cool.
It's a big, so as someone that spent 2 years working exclusively from home, it was a big spot that a lot of people you'd see the same people there very often going in. Some students, some, shiftless layabouts like myself who were there to find a place to work outside of their house so they aren't looking at the same four walls all day. And it's a great spot for it. It's awesome.
That's awesome. I never really thought about that. I mean, if you work at home, you can always go there and just settle down. Excellent. Tim, were you able to make contact with any of your
I
departments?
did. I actually met with them prior to last month's meeting. I haven't had a second meeting with them in the new year yet. So that's going to be up and coming over the next month, hopefully, pending their schedules as well.
If you could just, which departments?
I met with both the Southeastern Regional VOTEC superintendent and the superintendent of schools for Easton, Dr. Cabral. So I had a good discussion with both of them. With the Southeastern VOTEC, we talked about the steady increase of student population coming from Easton, which is obviously an increased contribution on our part. So he was looking to get those numbers finalized in January, at least have a better idea of where they're going to land. So hopefully with the second meeting we'll have a better idea what the impact is going to be there. And then we went through all the other aspects of what goes about that with real estate tax. I mean, it just, there's a lot
Is he
that goes
inclined to
into it.
think the number's going up or leveling?
The student
or-
population is going to go up, and then we have to look at home values too and see that kind of stuff. And so those numbers are kind of all going to meld and mush together over the next month or two. So we should have a better idea where the student population is, and then we'll see what the cost will be for us.
Okay.
And the home values and all that stuff go into there too. So I can tell you what, he's spot on. He gave me like a stack of charts and pie charts and statistics.
Who was it?
Lewis.
Okay.
And he was very, very on top of it, so that was good to see. But so hopefully I have a nice clear picture after the second meeting, so we'll kind of see where all those things land. The second meeting I had was with Dr. Cabral. She was also very informative, came through a lot of stuff. That's another just massive amount of information. So when we met before, they were still trying to figure out the union contract that was kind of still in the works. And there was, I think their biggest concern, however, was some of the facility costs they were looking at in terms of building repairs. There's some roof repairs that need to be done. Athletic field was something that came up too, and they're investigating if that's going to be coming out of budget, capital budget, and also committees for
Okay.
fundraising and that kind of stuff. So they were kind of working on all those things as well.
Was that teachers union?
Correct. Yeah. That was at the early December, so it's been well over a month. So next time we meet, we probably should have some
Yeah, things are going to start picking up
pretty
pretty soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I have debt and interest, employee benefits, and other general government. And as you all know, Connor has been out. We're very excited for him and the arrival of his new dependent. I'll be meeting with Connor on the 25th of this month, and we'll have more information to provide to this committee next time we meet.
Okay. I have Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, Reserve Fund, Town Council, and the Town Clerk. There's no changes to the Finance Committee or the Board of Selectmen in their budgets right now. Reserve Fund shouldn't be affected. You never know. The reason it's there is usually for emergency purposes, so it's tough to foresee a need in the Reserve Fund. Town Council, there's still collective bargaining going on, I believe, with fire and police. And so there's been a lot of negotiations this year, which has caused a slight increase in town council to participate in those negotiations, and not all negotiations are yet complete. So we might see an increase, slight increase, and I mean very small, in our town council budget. The town clerk's office, this year we have there's 3 elections this year as opposed to 4 elections in previous years, which will save some money. I believe it's in the 4 elections were state midterms, primaries, town elections, and then town meeting is also considered, I believe, an event for the town clerk's office. So there'll be only 3. Save some money. The census is now going out, and during the time when the census comes back, the town clerk's office often has to hire, outsource somebody to bring in and help with that. It's a low-cost position, but it's something that's mostly budgeted. Shouldn't affect things too much. Moving forward, Connor was made aware that state aid, which usually hovers between 3% and 5% of our budget, is going to be, it's not in stone, but it's thought to be around 2.7% this coming year, which is a decrease as a percentage. And to paint a better picture, what that represents as far as dollars is an increase in $114,000 increase. Even though the percentage decrease, obviously, it doesn't take a mathematician to know that how that works. So as a percentage, the contribution is going to be less, which is not what we want. But I think year after year, the state aid never increases. This has been a battle that's been going on for years. State aid as a percentage is decreasing. And this is a big, I don't want to say argument, but conundrum. People, they pit it one against the other, say, no, state aid's increasing. And yes, it's increasing by $114,000, but as a percentage, it's dropping. So it gets more and more difficult, and we have to rely more and more upon ourselves to generate revenue. And that is the scoop on my departments.
Great. Do you want me to do the snow and ice now for this burn this part, or is there separate?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so my cluster is the DBW, and I had met with Dave Field back in, I want to say late September, early October initially, and he did the presentation with me that he did to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee back in March. But I got a kind of personal, could ask questions as we go along, so it's really, really great opportunity to kind of drill down and understand the different areas in the DPW and any of his concerns, and nothing really blaring came out of that discussion other than, one of the things he raised was, there's a big maintenance backlog. I think it's continuously a problem when we have to react to problems instead of addressing them. Those things do start to cost more money, so just something to keep in mind. But the thing we talked about, circling back on later, was snow and ice. So I got to tour the facility as well, which is really cool. Seeing all the facility and meeting the staff there, who were all very pleasant. So Dave and I had a follow-up call this week about the snow and ice reports, and I asked him to give me kind of just a walkthrough of the report and to also explain the hot topic of brining and kind of understand how that's affecting the budget in terms of DPW. So do you guys all have your snow and ice report open? I can quickly walk you through. Does everybody know how to read it, or can we walk you through it? And
Why don't you walk us through it, just for, if not for us,
Perfect.
then for the people at home.
Mark, how are these getting? How do people access these? I mean, I know I'm getting them, but are these accessible?
That's an excellent question.
Okay.
I do not know the answer.
Just wondering if this is something people would have.
Find out the answer and see if this is, I'm sure it's public, but where is it?
Okay. So if you look at the report, at the top there's a list of number of events. This year we've had 5 events. And to the right, it's a breakdown of how they define that type of event. So as you can see, we've only had 1 plowing event. We've had these 3 sanding mains, and sanding would include the brining and then the spot sanding. So that totals the 5 events. Our total costs here are only the $82,000 and some change of the $493,700 budget. So it looks like we're very underspent, especially considering that we're a third of the way through winter, as it's defined by the DPW, but I'll get to that in a minute. He's gone ahead and broken down the labor costs and all the other costs that make up that $82,000 to the right. Below that, you can see the number of hours and snow total inches. The total cost per inch is an interesting metric. We talked a bit about that. That number will come down as the season goes on significantly. He says it's averaging year over year about $9,500. It's averaging a year. So, this number will come down as the season progresses. And then he breaks down the hours by different types of equipment versus staffing hours. And as you can see there, one of the big hours is the overtime hours that we want to keep an eye on, because that's a huge cost cost sink for driving the budget for DPW. And then the material information there as well. As I mentioned, the season is about a third of the way through. So the number down at the bottom, that total projected cost budget is, the total projected cost is not accurate at this point in time. You can look at that. People got excited in 2015, for example, because we were trending a similar way, and everyone remembers what happened in 2015 when we had Snowmageddon and ended up with a big deficit with budget. So, at this point, it's something we have to watch very carefully, and you really can't start to make any assessments until after, because we know snow is not a predictable thing in New England. So that is the report itself. So the brining questions, we got a bit into, what is brining and how did this all come about, and what impact it's having on their budget. So it's essentially, for people who don't know, it's a more efficient way to treat roads. Communities are using this. It's basically a salt solution. So it's a 23% breakdown of salt in water. So instead of using the wet down salt, this solution can go out. And the big benefit is the way they can use it to treat the roads and pre-treat the roads. So a lot of communities are using this, and they use it, using it before Easton. It can be put on with regular spreaders. Ultimately, there's a big cost savings in the use of less salt. That's one benefit right there cost-wise, but that's not what the big cost benefit is. As the snow falls, the roads are better prepared, so there's a bit of a safety element as well. They can actually go out and do this, in anticipation of a snowstorm, so they're kind of getting the landscape ready. Brining, you'll get about 30 to 40 gallons is needed for a mile. Other major cost savings, you can brine on regular time before a major event. So one event they did just all the roads, and another event they just did the mains. There have been 2 brining events this year. Neither event materialized, but to give you an example of the cost, because there was no overtime, they're doing this on regular hours. The event on January 7th only cost them $212 because of the lack of overtime. So if we go out and do it and nothing happens, it's really not that big a deal. But if the storm does come, so basically think about how many storms would have to happen. It's such a big cost savings that they can do this several times, and it's just not even chipping away. The salting event for the mains cost a little bit more at $2,500 because of some overtime. So it depends on timing and what they need to do and the scale of the operation, but it's still significantly cost difference. So you see right there, $2,500 versus the $212. You said there's a learning curve. And this is actually a great way for them to learn, make sure that they understand how everything works, make sure the equipment is ready. The capital cost of the equipment was about $100,000 for the equipment and spreaders. This was requested a few years ago in the capital plan. The assumptions at the time had figured 5 events per year, so that this would pay for itself within 4 years. He's assuming a $25,000 cost savings per year by using brining, along with the rest of their snow management practices. There tend to be 13 salting events a year that don't involve plowing. This can be used in conjunction with any salting or plowing activities. The goal really is to pre-treat. And this also gives more flexibility with how he can bring in staff that are working overtime. So when there's a snow event, in the pre-brining days, they have to be in there for a longer buffer of a couple hours before a storm to do more work and be ready to go out and do certain activities. Now he says he can have them come in right up to the margin time-wise, so there's more cost savings there. This is the first year using it, even though it was in capital a couple years ago, because they got the equipment last October in 2017, but it wasn't ready for the road. There was a whole process of getting folks trained and getting the equipment all set up, building the shed, etc. Mass DOT uses this. Other towns like Mansfield use this, and it's used widely across the country. And the other benefit is an environmental benefit. You're using 1/3 of the salt that is used during regular salting approaches. So he said ultimately, when it comes to their budget, they're very conscious of their budget. But at the end of the day, there's no compromise for safety. So that's an important thing to remember. That ultimately, the cost per inch I mentioned, and the be cautiously optimistic because 2015 is burned in our memories. So that is the snow and ice update. If they have any questions, I can always go back to Dave and clarify.
Are we selling any of the brine?
What's that?
Are we selling brine to other communities too?
I'm actually not sure. I mean, I assume they could make it the way.
Right.
I don't believe we're not doing it this year.
We're not doing it this year.
They talked about once they get set up and they're become pros, so to speak, on it, and to see how much they can handle, they might consider outsourcing it for other communities to generate income from it, but not in this first year.
Okay.
But it is in the back of their minds. It's on other people's radar as to how to generate revenue for the town because of it.
That's a good question for later to follow up with them on.
I had a question about the actual. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Looking at the numbers on the snow and ice report, though, it looks like that wouldn't be a lot of money unless there's a tremendous capacity that we have untapped or what have you. But
Oh, you mean the sale would not bring in a tremendous amount of money?
yeah, just looking at what the cost numbers to us
$212 for a
look like they were on the order of 14 grand for supplies, but I thought I saw in there.
Yeah.
So we sold it to 10 towns.
Might be more cost effective not to sell it.
You might break
Maybe.
Yeah.
Depending on
We all know we need every penny.
Sometimes
so.
it's cheaper just to stay home.
I wasn't suggesting it was a bad idea.
No, I
just,
know.
I'll ask him about that. I'm
Yeah.
curious now too, as this is the first I heard about the
It
possibility
was
of
a
that,
topic
so.
that came up, and that was what was floated around.
Yeah.
But for clarification, I just want to put out there that our snow and ice budget annually is $493,700. Right now, we've gone through $82,106.
Yeah.
Leaves us $411,593. We're 41 days into the season. We have about 2.5 months left. So to be in that position at this time of year, knock on wood, is amazing. Let's hope it stays that way.
Just jinxed us.
Yeah, no.
Oh, I have.
You said exactly what I said not to say.
I feel obligated to share these numbers with the people.
I did. I said them.
60-inch nor'easter this weekend.
Want to drill it home.
Okay. Okay.
Great.
So,
We
but
just-
it's not going to. It won't. Don't worry. Trust me.
I even teased Dave. I'm like, it goes through March. We had snowstorms on April 1st. So
Absolutely, we
there's-
have. Yeah, we absolutely have. We usually have the cutoff of April 1st or 2nd, where we can all just say, "Okay, it's done."
You're jinxing us again.
Oh, I should just go home.
Jen, do you know offhand, this is sort of a procedural of how they're actually doing it versus an environmental discussion point, is that they pre-treat with brine.
Yes.
And then during a storm, if a storm event is going on, if we're getting hammered with snow, thanks to Mark now, and there is now, they need to go out and plow and do various other things, do they use regular salt at that point? Or
Yes.
Okay. They
Yeah.
cannot
Salt
continue
brining is for pre-treating.
Thank you.
So basically, the idea with brining is that because the salt, it doesn't stick to the road the way the brine does, so that's why they can use a lot less of it. They used it before. It gives them a bigger margin of time to get out there and start plowing.
Got it.
Less urgency. There's a nice buffer there. He has more flexible scheduling the folks to come in. So it becomes this finely tuned dance with managing people, but it's an easier dance, it sounds like, when you pre-treat with brine.
And then you put the
Especially
salt
when you've been
down.
able to do that during regular working hours.
Right. So salt's going down when there's snow on the ground. That's the thing that's actually keeping it on the ground, whereas the brine
Yes.
is the actual treatment.
Yeah.
Got it.
I have a logistical question. This brine is created at the DPW, and then is it pumped onto a truck?
That's my understanding, but I'm not completely sure.
Okay, 'cause
So
I'm trying
I
to
can
put it together in my
clarify
mind.
that. They do have all the equipment
Right,
there.
it's in a
And they
shed,
make,
they
what I understood,
create
they
it,
make the solution,
put it on a truck, and then the
23%
truck
solution.
puts it out there. Is there only one brining truck we have?
I
Or is
don't
it
actually know how much
more than
equipment we
one?
have. I can follow up and find out.
Because I'm curious to see if it's one truck that covers all the roads in Easton.
Yeah, I'm not completely
We have a
sure.
lot of roads, a lot of miles, and
Right, because
I
the
think it's one
request was for, the capital cost was $100,000, so that's not actually a ton of money considering we're talking with heavy equipment.
okay.
I have a quick question. You said that the projected cost was not up to date. Do you know what they based that projection on?
Which projected
Like
cost?
the total projected cost at the bottom.
He's just extrapolating it out based on the number of days. So we've had the 34% of the way there, so
Eight
yeah.
times 3, basically.
Yeah, extrapolating out the budget, what we spent, and, we're third way, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's why it's super inaccurate, because, typically, he said that what we've been seeing is winter, someone who watches it regularly, we all know this from living through it, but winter's hitting much later, and it can be much harder when it does hit, full force, so.
Anybody have any questions about DPW, brining, snow and ice?
Can't wait till next month.
Davis?
Okay,
Take it away.
So, yep, I have the accountant, assessor, and collector treasurer departments. I've been in touch with all of them. Of course, the accountant is Wendy, who we're pretty regularly in touch with anyways. I haven't gotten a chance to sit down and go through everything with a fine-tooth comb yet, but we're looking to try and do that before the end of January. But just to give some background, each of the 3 departments, they're all fairly similar. Each one, the majority of their expenses are just for payrolls, and so far each of the 3 are almost identically, on track for spending their payrolls. And anything that's not payroll, it tends to be these, recurring fixed costs, such as training or I'm just looking at an example here, dues and membership for associations that they might be part of. And so as a result, you get stuff like I was just looking at it, the accountant is, at negative 92.34% remaining of one of their budget items, but that's because they've spent $480 on travel instead of $250. So those are the things that basically we were planning on going over, is looking at the costs that have run over that are fixed and just determining, is this something is that what we should set as the new normal, the higher
Right.
cost, or was this like a
Is this a trend or is this a,
exactly, yeah, like was it just a
exceptional
one-time
event?
thing that
Right.
came up, or should we start trying to budget it higher for the future? So yeah, so I'll have more information probably at the next meeting.
okay, excellent. Mike, have you got anything for us?
Yeah, so I have information technology, water, and trash. Generally, three things you don't want to mix in the real world. I've had an interesting, brief but substantive conversation with Mike in IT, and I was actually fairly impressed the degree to which organizationally he has things under control. Budgets are on track. Of course, with IT, you're driven mostly by software and hardware costs, along with people. We are lucky, I would say, this year as a town that we had the opportunity to spend a lot last year on capital equipment, which has reduced the need for it this year. The future, we can expect that to grow as systems reach end of life, end of support, and it becomes a matter of we simply need to replace them or upgrade them, as the case may be, in order to ensure continued uptime, continued functionality. I asked an interesting, or rather I asked a question that had an interesting answer about where we are, that we've been able to deliver on our services with what's in place, and that there aren't glaring...
Our IT services.
Thank you. Yes, our IT services, without glaring needs in the immediate term, which is positive, with one, what I would refer to as a safety exception, which is the need to explore ways to keep our telecom lines in a storm intact, so that residents can report things to DPW during storm events.
We own our telecom lines?
We have the lines coming in are provided to us by Comcast currently.
Wouldn't they be responsible for those lines?
They are, which means that if they prove to be more fragile than another vendor's lines, it becomes an issue of safety when those go down. Even though we can turn to them and say, you need to keep those up more, that doesn't help when they go down in the middle of a weather event, for example. Notably, this does not include our 911 lines. Those are managed by the state. So we have no concerns there. It's more residents' ability to call into the town. Possible solutions there are, in budgetary terms, though, relatively minor.
Okay. So it sounds like they've been planning along very well.
Yeah. Like I say, I was genuinely impressed with where he's at.
I do have a question, and forgive me for not knowing it. Perhaps I did at one point, but in this moment I don't. Is IT responsible for the IT at the schools as well, or just, okay,
That's all maintained by the schools.
okay.
Which actually is a great question, something that did come up. So
Because I would imagine, I mean, the amount of IT at the schools is incredible.
it's substantially larger.
Right.
Because
Good to know that they're actually separate.
Right. At the schools, you're going to have your classroom systems, which are going to be subscription-based and substantial. Not to mention the many additional buildings and the requisite infrastructure that goes into that, as well as instructional technology, which is, again, non-trivial. So that's IT. I had the briefest of interactions, try and schedule a meeting with Dave over at DPW about trash and water. So we're working on that. The encouraging thing there, of course, is those are two self-funding parts of the town, so it becomes much more straightforward to manage those. But obviously, reviewing their budgets in advance, they are perfectly well on track. There's nothing there that stands out. So I'm not expecting major concerns in that regard.
Has the trash cost increased yet?
The price to
Right.
consumers.
I believe it went up about 25%, I want to say, annually.
It was going up. I'm not sure if that hit yet. I haven't.
$10 per quarter?
Yeah,
It
has-
went up,
it,
yeah.
it did go
So
up.
it's already hit.
Okay,
Okay.
$10
I apologize.
I-
So it went from
I don't
60 to
pay that bill.
70. Which probably means I owe my bill then, because important safety tip. But yeah, that's going up. That's one of the
So it's already went up.
yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the again, the positive things is that because they're managing that as its own enterprise, as its own business. Yes, we do face occasional price increases, but because we're centralizing it, we get the buying power of the town.
Right. It's important for people to know that increase is literally, it's a pass-through.
Yes.
We're not making $10 more per quarter per subscriber for that. There are increased costs that have come along with waste removal or waste disposal, so that additional cost is a complete pass-through.
Right. So those are my reports.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mike, IT, water, or waste? No. Okay, reports from other boards and committees. We want to start again at the end. Patrick, if you don't mind, speaking to the school planning committee.
Sure.
We had a meeting there last week, and something important happened.
So, last meeting was on the 9th. We added 2 additional options to the potential submission, which were essentially the first one was to take a full center school population and add it to the Parkview site. So essentially another school on the Parkview site. Take about a year and a half to build. We would lose 2 softball fields. You'd obviously still have the inequality of the Monroe students. And then the second option was to update center to a full new, and in the process of that, add on a significant new section. That would also involve moving children to a modular classroom setup for the entire duration, probably a 3-year construction with multiple phases. That was added to, I have the actual list if anyone wants to see it. These are the options assessments that were handed out that are essentially like, here's a quick map. This is all public information you get on the website as well. But those were added to because the process itself is, from a submission standpoint to the boards and whatnot, having the majority of options that are automatically have to include things like an addition renovation, and then subsequent different options for new construction, etc. The more the better to sort of narrow down that list into the most compelling, the most interesting, the most advantageous. So we voted on the submission. We actually removed.
We started at 6
We started at 6, correct?
and reduced it.
We've broken it down to the following, which is an addition renovation at Center School, a brand new at the Center School site, an addition renovation at the Parkview site, or a brand new at Parkview. So that's what we're submitting now as our 4 choices going forward. That was submitted on, let me look, I have it written down. I think it was the 15th, I think it was yesterday. So submission has gone in. That's the PDP, the preliminary design program of what it is we're choosing, what we're looking at, etc. Goes in on the 15th. And then that is evaluated. And the evaluation process takes a look at all the various different considerations, including things like traffic impact, including things like sewage treatment, etc. That will then determine what eventually becomes the PSR, the preferred schematics that we're going to go forward with. And then the final sort of assessment, etc., would be getting the final schematic design would be submitted in September of this year. The key thing to keep in mind there is that when that final submission goes through, it's essentially, we have decided, there's been some discussion, voting, back and forth communication between the boards, school committee, etc., and MSBA to discuss exactly what that final solution needs to look like and what the best benefit is. Once that's approved, signed off on, voted on, there is then a 120-day time period for the town to become involved and to vote, and to vote to secure funding, vote to approve, etc. the next steps are we do have a meeting on February 6th, which is going to be essentially the next step in that MSBA design process, which we've submitted that PDP. We're now moving to that PSR stage. So if we're in that process, there might be some comments coming back from the SBR that's like, oh yeah, here's what we think of this. Here's our first cut at your submission. The submission itself is essentially this thick with all the relevant documentation and data that we've already collected, including things like those traffic reports, school changes, the cost to bring all of these schools up to just code base, etc. And then if anyone is interested in seeing that PDP, there is a Dropbox link that has the full submission that is available on the site as well. Final board approval is looking like Halloween. So if we get a final approval and submission for our own side in the early September timeframe, the final board meeting, etc., would be in the Halloween timeframe. That 120 days would be starting in that September time, and then we have the essentially 3 months to start putting everything together for a final vote.
And that would be through a special town meeting?
Correct. Just based on the timeline.
It will be town meeting, and if town meeting approves it, then it goes to a ballot.
Yeah,
Vote.
I'm saying I think it'll have to be a special town meeting.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's outside of the normal
Yeah,
time.
absolutely.
Yep.
It'll be
Yes.
outside of
What else did I have?
Patrick,
I think that's it. Yes.
on the Parkview options, one of them was a new school and one of them was an expansion, you said?
Correct. So essentially the 6 options that were originally presented were either put an addition on or renovate, or both center, right? A brand new school at the center school site, eliminating the old building completely.
Yep.
A brand new center school population building on the same grounds as the Parkview building. So Parkview stays the same. Center essentially is the new building is built there. The center school population moves to that site.
That's the new Parkview one you were referring to.
Correct. And then
That's what you meant when you said it would still affect Moreau Hall.
Correct.
Got it.
because Moreau
Okay.
would not be moving to that location.
And,
They would still have their own
and
population.
is still on the table the renovation expansion of Parkview? I'm just making sure I heard
Yes.
as you read
So
aloud.
you have to submit a renovation addition option for the 2 sites that we have selected. So we have one for each, Center and Parkview.
And the renovation expansion one would move all students to the current Parkview campus. Is that correct?
One of the options.
One of the 2 of the options, I believe.
Well, one at Center and one at Parkview campus. Correct?
The Center, full brand new. The add reno at Parkview and the brand new at Parkview.
Right.
Combine all 3 schools into one.
Got it.
The Parkview add reno option is essentially keeping the existing building and building a significant other wing on there
To accommodate.
to accommodate that other population.
Got it.
What's important to note, which is very confusing, and sometimes it confuses me, and I'm on this committee, is regardless of where this project is put, whether it's at Parkview or Center School, it's always going to be called the Center School project.
Right, of course.
Okay?
Correct,
So
yeah.
if it happens at Parkview, it's still the Center School project.
Understood. I was just trying to make sure I understood the.
Just for people
Yeah,
at home, or
thank you.
maybe there's confusion, but
Yeah, so the final submission that we moved forward to the next stage of the process, just to make sure it's clear, is an addition renovation Center School option. That's number 1. A brand new complete school at Center School is option 2. At the Center School site is option 2. A add renovation option at Parkview. A brand new at Parkview. So those are the 4 that we've decided are the most feasible, have the most benefit, have the least amount of sort of disruptions, be it loss of various different fields, loss of sporting abilities, etc. And the traffic options, the impact of bus queues, all of that is going into the same discussion. It's broken out into a green is good, red is bad sort of matrix on this that you can take a look at. It's significant to sort of dive into on a one-to-one, but it makes it very clear that the 4 that we went forward with are they address the majority of the concerns of the multiple school districts that are coming together in a lot of these options, and make sure that it's all a feasibility option going forward.
And how would we find these online? I think you said.
So there is a website. The the website, I don't actually have the URL in front of me. Let me see if I have it here. But there is a website for the project itself, which essentially, I think it's available from the meeting minutes site. It's where I typically go through to get to it. But it is a full breakdown of all the public information that has been associated. You can get to it from the Town of Easton page under the School Planning Committee committee tab. All the information should be in there. It actually redirects to that and then includes essentially any and all communication updates ever since. Oh, I remember the other thing. The last piece was we appropriated $1 million for this project, for this feasibility study and process. We are significantly under the current contracted value. So the what do you call it? Perkins Eastman and what's the other name? PMA Consultants both have been fantastic to work with, right? Giving us all the tools we need, making sure that they're walking through the process that, you know, obviously we're not familiar with. And they're doing it under budget, significantly under budget for the time frame that we're at. So well worth the current spend, in my opinion.
I believe after our last meeting, one of their next steps they were taking was a harder look at the traffic study. And they actually, I believe, had to go to the Board of Selectmen to get funding
Yes.
for that.
So there was a it's a good point. There's a built-in sort of buffer in that when we were going through the process of selecting the sites, there was going to need to be a sort of basic traffic impact survey where someone goes on site and actually observes the traffic on a regular given day, counts cars, sees buses, sees pathways, etc., and determines what those patterns look like. That has been done. That's included in the PDP. So that first sort of casual level, well, it's not casual.
It's like
The first-
an observational.
The basic observational level is there.
Yeah.
And that's part of the submission. It has to be there. Because we have these multiple options now, and because it's a benefit to the town to do this, because it's a significant impact when you're talking about taking multiple school districts and combining into potentially one location, the next stage is to kick in these true sort of deeper dive, iterative traffic studies.
Yeah.
And so
They're
yes,
like
there is
anticipatory
money
of
in the
what could
budget.
occur should the school be on this property or this property. You know, how's it going to impact everything around it? Whereas, as Patrick said before, it was this is what we see now, and it's like, you know, which is great, but in my opinion, it doesn't help with the decision-making process of which site we select because we already know this information.
And to that point, there is money in that allocation that is there for this type of expenditure, but because it's probably going to be over a certain threshold of spend, I think it does have to go back to the Board of Selectmen.
$25,000,
$25,000 to go back to the Board of Selectmen for approval of essentially cutting that check to these traffic survey association.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. Does anybody have any questions about school planning committee, center school project? Okay. Tim, whatever department?
No, I just have the schools, that's it.
Okay. We'll go right down the line.
On audit, we have not had any meetings since, oh gosh, since the last time I reported on that. I think it was in November. We won't have another meeting until the audit report, the audit for the town is received. We anticipate those earlier this year in the calendar for meetings that right now I don't remember off the top of my head, but there was not a special component of the audit that needs to be done this year. So the audit will be done in a more timely manner, and I'll be reporting on that when we receive those results. As a update to this group and to anyone who's watching, the audit committee minutes have been posted to the website. They had not been filed or posted. They'd been reviewed and approved, but they had not been posted. They are not currently up to date on the website.
Okay, so budget subcommittee was supposed to meet on Monday night, but the meeting was canceled. So there is no update since the last report out, which I gave in December for the November 26th meeting. The group will reconvene on February 4th, so I will have an update. I think when we next meet will be middle of February, so
Okay.
that's it.
Excellent.
So the capital planning committee has also not met since our last meeting, but we do have our next meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, the 22nd at 7 p.m. And we'll be reviewing the capital budget requests for IT, police, fire, and inspectional services.
That'll be an interesting meeting. Very important. Look forward to hearing about that. Did not, now you do?
I am. but
What is it?
Same as the budget. So
Okay.
Jen and I are on the same one.
Okay.
With the same report. And as it turns out, you don't find out that the meeting is canceled if you haven't yet been sworn in. I showed up ready for the meeting, went to get sworn in. Danielle looked at me and said, there's no meeting.
You successfully got sworn in.
Yeah, yes, I
Not
did.
completely wasted trip.
Thanks to the
Not
hard
bad.
and urgent work of Roberta. So,
There for you, Mike.
we got it done. We got it done.
Yeah. If you don't mind, while we're talking budget subcommittees too, we do need to make sure that the appointments and the filing obligations for our budget appointments are on file and up to date. So I'll be working with Danielle to make sure that that happens in the next meeting.
Excellent. Before our next meeting, anyway. Yeah, okay. I'm on the school planning committee. Patrick nailed it. I don't really need to speak to that. Does anybody have any questions on boards and committees? Okay. Review and approve minutes. December minutes went out. I was not at the December meeting, so I can't speak to it, but does anybody have any comments regarding?
Do we have?
I think we have to
We have November
We have
meeting
November's
minutes
as well.
We
yeah.
do?
November minutes?
Okay. That's right, I did. Does anybody have any questions or comments or notations regarding November and December?
So I have
Or
one
December.
change on November.
Sure.
So under school planning, the last bullet under school planning says center school site is not viable due to wetlands in the area. It is viable, but the wetland consideration in the area makes the overall footprint of that center school possibility much smaller because you can only build to a certain level. There's only a certain space available. So it's a tighter site for that type of project. It is still viable. We did submit it as one of the viable options.
Right, but in that meeting, that was stated.
That it's less viable because of the wetlands.
Okay.
Because the wetlands only allow you a certain amount of space to build.
Mhm.
You can't build past that. There's no sort of overrun.
Any other comments regarding November? We'll start with November. Anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes with changes in November?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? Abstention? 2 abstentions. December.
I think something in December is incorrect because I think we actually had to push both the October 30th and the November minutes forward because we didn't have critical mass on both of those, right?
No, we did.
We did on one but
have
not the
a
other?
quorum, and
Okay.
we approved October and we
deferred
delayed
November.
November.
Okay. For some reason I thought we had not approved both, but okay, then that's my memory being faulty. Okay.
Anyone like to make a motion to approve the December minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? Abstention? Minutes are approved. Committee member comments. Anybody have any last things to say?
I would make a reminder to everyone that your campaign contribution reports are due. If you haven't already done those, Danielle did send an email around to everyone. But just make sure that those are filed for an on-time delivery. I think the 18th was her deadline.
Even if you've spent $0, you still have to submit it reflecting that.
The affidavit, right?
You can sign the affidavit,
It's,
correct?
the affidavit is if you have no balance in your account, otherwise you have to do the normal forms.
Community participation.
Actually, I do.
Awesome.
Mr. Barger?
Craig Barger, Old Foundry Street. I'm coming today as the acting chair of the Green Communities Committee. And the reason I'm here is well, besides to learn and to compliment all of you on your diligence around meeting with town department heads. I think it's terrific, the job you guys are doing, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
As one of the agenda items for the Green Communities Committee speaks to something that Mike was talking about, and that is the cost of waste management and the recycling, as well as a proposal that we're working on to potentially come to you guys and then to the Board of Selectmen and then to the town regarding the removal of plastic bags from use in the town of Easton. And I don't know what I haven't done a cost analysis, so I don't know what the expense might be to the constituents of the town or to the companies that actually provide plastic bags right now, but I can tell you that there are 85 or 87 communities in Massachusetts who have banned plastic bags. Not the small bags that you use for your meat and fish and fruit, but the ones with the handles. Mansfield has done it. They're actually in the process of doing it. West Bridgewater, Dartmouth. So we've been reaching out to communities to try to find out what their process was, what steps they used to get to that eventual decision on the part of the town meeting, and whether there was any cost associated with it, and what kind of response they were getting from the businesses. But it's so interesting that we just had a meeting, and today there was an article in the Brockton Enterprise that Big Y here in Easton is statewide going to remove plastic bags in 2020. So they stole a little bit of our thunder, but that's okay. It's positive.
Somebody's got to get the ball rolling.
Exactly. So I'm going to reach out to them and have a conversation about how they arrived at that decision, and was it one of those things where they've got 4 or 5 communities where they have businesses that are already banning plastic, and so they were sort of seeing what's going to be coming. And I suspect that if it comes to, if I understand the process correctly, it will eventually come to you guys, to the Board of Selectmen, and then to town meeting in order to do this removal of plastic bags. The town of Mansfield has a 6-month time frame for the large grocery stores and companies of more than 5,000 square feet, but a year for the smaller groups. Obviously, I'm interested in and concerned about the small mom and pop stores, about what's the impact. I think if you read the article about Big Y, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was extraordinary, the number of plastic bags that they use in the course of a year. I mean, millions. And so if you talk about wanting to do paper bags, then you obviously, there's another expense. And some, in Boston, I believe they were proposing that that you have to pay for the paper bags, so that, I don't know how much they were.
It was 10 cents. I was actually just yesterday, I went to Shaw's in Boston, and it was 10 cents for, it wasn't a paper bag, it was a reusable bag, but it was 10 cents.
All right. And the other thing is that Big Y is going to be encouraging people to get reusable bags that are cloth bags that can carry 25 pounds or something to that effect. But I think it's a very worthwhile, from my perspective, proposal. And I wanted you guys to be aware of where we're starting with that. And if there is some financial ramifications as a result, then obviously I would want you guys to weigh in on that as well. But that's something that I'm kind of excited about in one of my other roles. The interesting thing that we met with Dave Field earlier this year, or earlier last fall, about the whole issue about the recycling costs and what's happening as a result of China dramatically reducing the amount of recycling from this country that they're taking in, and that we have a target of no more than 10% contamination inside our recycling, because if we go above that, it costs us some additional money, which is one of the reasons why the cost went up from $70 a quarter to $80 a quarter, was to cover those additional costs.
Wasn't it, I'm sorry, wasn't it started at 10%, but because China then, they bumped it down to like 4% or something crazy, where it was like
3%.
Yeah, 3%. Where it was like, it's impossible
That's correct.
to make our recyclables that clean.
But I think one of the things, Mark, is that what people don't understand is that when you say contamination in that, it's not, if you put in plastic bags, that whole load gets dumped. It doesn't even get recycled. So you have to be aware of what it is that you put into your recyclings. Many of us would use a plastic bag in a trash can, throw our recyclings in, grab the bag and put it in the recycling.
Yeah, I've done that, and I got a, the little note,
Yeah, exactly. We have a
bad
member of our
note where it's
committee
like,
who
oh boy,
had
what did I do
had
wrong?
that note. So it's something that people should be aware of, and we're trying to, as a committee, to try to work with the DPW to expand the information part of the job so that people understand what it is that needs to be done and how you can or can't utilize recycling. And I think that's another important aspect of it. There are signs now up, I believe, in all schools and here in the town offices about what you can or cannot recycle. And that was provided by Waste Management as part of the new contract we have with them.
We just got a flyer in the mail too.
Yeah, that comes beginning of every year. That's correct.
It's the
Yeah.
new one that
Yeah.
tells the details.
Exactly. We also wanted it to be in a larger venue as well. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and to also thank you for allowing me to populate your meetings every month, or as many months as I possibly can. And I want to compliment you again on the job you guys do.
Thank you. We are very thankful for your participation.
Craig, a quick question for you. Have the other towns that have gotten rid of plastic bags, have they seen much in the way of either financial impacts, good or bad, and have they seen any creative approaches to, there still remains the problem of people need to carry stuff?
Right. At this point, we're still reaching out to ask them exactly those questions. And we're using the contiguous towns plus Dartmouth because they did it a year ago. Mansfield's in the process. Bridgewater just did it. So we just want to get that information as part of
You see
it.
Bridgewater just did it as well?
I think it's Bridgewater, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
excellent.
But I think it's 87 cities and towns.
That's a lot. That's like, what do we have, 361 towns?
357 or
So
something
that's
like that,
a
yeah.
quarter of,
Exactly.
it's a lot.
It's absolutely
It's going in the right
exciting
direction.
I'm excited that we're contemplating that.
Well, I can't take credit for it. As members of the committee, they brought it to my attention and said, why don't we do this? And I've had a lot of people from the community reach out to us via email to say, is this really going to do this, and can we be part of it? So I'm excited because I think part of getting this accomplished is getting the community involved and accepting that
Right.
this is a good thing to do. So
Yeah, to think 20 years ago, everything went into one bucket and was dumped
Yeah.
in a landfill and just bulldozed over to where we're at now. It seems as though it's going in the right direction.
Now it's all dumped in the Pacific.
That's not true.
No, there's still lots of landfills.
They're not all dumped there.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much, Craig. Meeting schedule. So I have booked this room at 7:30 p.m. every second Wednesday of the month, February through December of 2019. So just put it on your calendar, mark it off. And I believe moving forward, we don't need to have another meeting until the second Wednesday of February. February.
Sorry.
So that's where our meeting schedule is now. After that, I anticipate things picking up. There'll probably be presentations. People will be coming in. We'll have joint meetings, and we'll get into our busy season. So, does anybody have any last-minute comments? Would anyone like to make a motion on the last item on the agenda?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All those in favor? Okay. Meeting adjourned.